Hello and welcome to this race day edition of J&B Talk F1. As always, I'm Jawad Yacoub and I'm joined by Baden Westerweller. How are you today?
Afternoon, everyone. I hope you're well. We're back again for another race.
Indeed, and it's been quite a bit of time between drinks, hasn't it? We're here for the Hungarian Grand Prix this weekend. 70 laps to come up later on of the Hungaroring circuit, and who other than the master of the Hungaroring in recent times than Lewis Hamilton to take pole position, his 5th career pole at the Hungaroring, equaling the record of Michael Schumacher and also his 9th pole position of the season. What a feat, isn't that, Baden?
Oh, Hamilton, it's one of his real gun circuits, along with Kimi Raikkonen. We'll allude to that later on, how they have a bit of a special relationship, you could call it. When one does well there, the other seems to thrive as well. But it's not really a surprise at all to see the Briton again stamping his authority as we do head into this mid-season break.
Exactly, and to go through qualifying now, basically, well, Lewis Hamilton, there was no challenging him at all because Nico Rosberg, his teammate, had problems right throughout the session. He had problems in free practice 3 as well, where he pretty much just struggled with the setup of his car and he couldn't find any balance whatsoever. So he was basically carrying these problems over to qualifying, and at the end of qualifying, the team's technical director, Paddy Lowe, he said that they had to apologise to Nico because they couldn't get to the bottom of their problem. So pole was Hamilton's then by half a second, and Sebastian Vettel, 3rd fastest for Ferrari, and he'll be joined on the second row of the grid by his ex-teammate from Red Bull, Daniel Ricciardo, who put in a season-best qualifying result for the team.
Well, really, when you look at the timings there, it's 0.35 of a second, so a case could be made that the Australian would be almost aggrieved, as he was post-Monaco, when he had remarked that he was disappointed not to be on that clean side of the grid as such. P4, nevertheless, it's a huge improvement, not one that would be out of the blue. We always knew Red Bull at this low downforce, low speed circuit would come into its own with its limited efficiencies. But P4, clearly he's got a lot to work with. And Ricciardo, of course, he is the reigning victor at Hungary after his infamous triumph 12 months ago.
Exactly, the 2014 races we talked about a lot during our Wednesday podcast last week. But yeah, one advantage that Ricciardo has over Vettel is the fact that he has won at this circuit, whereas Vettel, despite his two pole positions, hasn't actually won here. So that's quite interesting. But moving on now, Kimi Raikkonen will be starting 5th on the grid, alongside his compatriot Valtteri Bottas. Danny Kvyat in the second Red Bull is 7th.
Would you say, just on that note quickly, Danny P7 with his teammate P4, would the Russian be a little bit disappointed not to be P5, even P6?
Well, considering the pace that Red Bull have had all weekend, he probably would have expected to be higher up. But then again, all throughout the season, the Ferrari and the Williams have had a superior package to the Red Bull. So, but anyway, during the race, it could be a different picture. We might see, a good start strategy all coming in, but we'll discuss that in a moment following our wrap of qualifying. So Kvyat, P7, Felipe Massa will be joining him in P8. Then you've got Verstappen and Grosjean rounding out the top 10. Then it was a bit of a surprise to see Nico Hülkenberg not get into the top 10 despite his pace during free practice 3. He was knocked out in 11th. Carlos Sainz is 12th. Sergio Perez in the second Force India, who had that very, very bizarre crash incident, if you like, on Friday, where his Force India pretty much tripped over itself.
Must be said, it was very bizarre to the naked eye. When you look at it, it's pretty much innocent, innocuous rumble over the strip, and suddenly the car was propelled upside down, almost like some voodoo act. It's not something you see very often.
And it was a right rear suspension failure that led to that, and both Force Indias, as a result, had to sit out of practice 2 on the Friday to see if they could address the problems there. So Perez starting from 13th, Maldonado 14th in the Lotus. And then we've got the 2 McLarens, one of which, Fernando Alonso, made it through to Q2, but he was curtailed by a problem we don't know what the problem was, but he stopped at the end of the pit lane entry, and he was rather spectacular. He had to wheel his car back into the pit lane.
Full marks for Alonso there for effort, even if it didn't result in what we did believe coming into qualifying, a vastly improved prospect for McLaren, possibly a chance for them to add to that wanting points tally. But obviously the other McLaren, as you're about to say, Button, another hardship suffered by the Briton there.
Yeah, Button. So Button knocked out in Q1, down in position 16th, and Button was on an incredible final flying lap where he ended up being a tenth slower across the line, and this and he reported after his final flying lap that he had no ERS deployment on the home straight, and according to Ron Dennis, who said afterwards that the McLaren CEO, that the lack of ERS cost him 0.3, and he was only a tenth of a second away from the time he needed to get into Q2. So if he had that ERS deployment, then he would have easily had the Q2 berth, and Q3 even some believe was left begging by the Honda Power team.
Well, you got to say this, considering how few and far between these improved prospects are for McLaren. There's only really been Monaco, and that was where indeed Button brought up the first points from McLaren, and to a lesser extent Alonso lucked in to that solitary point at Britain. But when these chances come along, and for them to go begging thanks to these rather comical issues, it must be really quite frustrating for both of them to that extent. With Alonso, what we saw, Jimmy was very much on the pace in that opening session. So to see them now barely making it through to that Q2 as it was, it's got to be a bit disheartening. Nevertheless, there's every chance they could scrape a point and really make the most of a bit of a letdown.
Well, yeah, the point you make there about it being comical, sure, we know that McLaren Honda are in for a difficult season this year in terms of trying to get up to speed, to getting mileage on their unit, but some of the issues that they've had have been quite comical, and that's probably the most disappointing thing about it. If you like, Ron Dennis is a fan of consistency. They've been consistently...
Oh, there's no complaints for Ron on that front. If he wants to say where's the consistency, it can't be right. Well, that's a bit of an oxymoron, if you like, because they've been so inconsistent in the fact that they've been enduring what you would describe as an annus horribilis. There's no other way of really describing it. They've just had a campaign to forget, and that they can really only hope that the off season, even the mid season break, so they can get some kind of just cleared in the mindset and rejuvenate themselves for a push towards the next season. Really, it's really what it comes down to now. 2016's their priority from now on. But even so, when you get these moments where they're possibly going to be able to glean something, even if it's only 1 or 2 points, and these things crop up, it's something we have alluded to in the past as well. I probably just have to laugh at it now. It's just so comical.
Exactly. But moving it on now, so position 17 and 18 were occupied by the two Saubers, Marcus Ericsson out-qualifying his teammate Felipe Nasser. And it was interesting to learn as well during the Sky Sports coverage that Sauber actually haven't upgraded their car much since Melbourne. So they're pretty much running the package that they did in the first race, where they were able to score a handful of points. And this is why, I guess, since then they haven't been able to stay up to speed with the rest of the pack, such as the Force Indias, Toro Rossos, what have you.
Well, one has to surmise on that note just quickly that it would have to be linked in quite inextricably to the Guido van der Garde saga of that weekend. Of course, who can forget? We didn't even know essentially until P3 even qualifying who was going to make up their lineup, and there was obviously a large payout to settle this matter, and it was only addressed just prior to the Malaysian Grand Prix, and these funds obviously have gone wanting instead of developing the car. That's obviously cost them a lot of development ground.
Exactly, but another bit of news on Sauber, they confirmed heading into the weekend that both drivers will be retained for 2016. So that's the first bit of team of drivers being confirmed. And it was quite funny during the Thursday press conference when Felipe Nasser was quizzed by a member of the press and asked whether Sauber was sure that the Ericsson and Nasser were the only two drivers contracted by Sauber, referring obviously to the case of Vandergaard that happened earlier in the year, and everyone sought to just having a bit of laughter to that, including Nasser himself. So that was nice to see. But obviously that's behind them now. They've got the same two drivers booked in for 2016, which means they'll be able to consistently build upon the package that they have and the feedback they're getting from the current drivers. But more on that, obviously, when we do our silly season special and whatnot. So, and to round out the grid, then Roberto Merri outqualified his teammate Will Stevens for position 19 and 20. And that's how qualifying fared. But now we're going to take a look at the race, and Hamilton has shown such form and over the weekend, and it looks like he's on for a fifth victory at the circuit, which will mean he's the most successful driver at the Hungarian. At the moment, with his 4 victories that he's had, he shares the record with Michael Schumacher, but after that, there is no one who's ever achieved 5. So what do you think, Baden? He's on for 5?
Well, as we alluded to off the top, Lewis is very comfortable at this circuit. Of course, he enjoyed his first victory with the Brackley squad 2 years ago at the corresponding event, and as was also mentioned, he ties in with Kimi Raikkonen, so it's a bit of a fact and oddity, you could say. But if Lewis does win, then look out for Kimi to perhaps be P2. They tend to bunch up quite nicely and have quite the riveting battle to the line, but it wouldn't be any surprise at all for Lewis to really be untroubled off the line, and providing he gets a good start, he's just been comfortable coming into the weekend. And of course, Rosberg had these noted issues he's made light of with his braking that apparently he's had to manage throughout his current campaign, but it's only just come to light, as I say, this weekend. And whether this will afflict him throughout the race, it could be an opportunity for the likes of Vettel, Ricciardo, or as we say, Kimi, if he can get a good start, to really do something.
So does that, from what you're saying, then, P2 on the podium could still have a question mark hanging over it if Rosberg is uncomfortable out there?
Absolutely. P2, it's very flexible. I doubt that we'll see a Williams up there this weekend, but the Red Bull seems to have really inherited that position on a one-off basis. As we saw with the low downforce factor, they've really come into the RB11 package has come into its own there. Ricciardo, as we say, he reigning victor at the circuit, so it would be no surprise to see, even if it was just P3, for him to give Red Bull some temporary relief from the pain. But P2 could even be done, and Sebastian Vettel for P2, he's got the clean side of the grid, so there's every chance he could really make a good start and possibly give Hamilton a run for his money. But really, Hamilton, I don't know about you, Jawad, but my money's on him winning this one quite comfortably. It's going to be a battle for P2 and best of the rest.
Exactly. Weather shouldn't come into the equation. There is set to be thunderstorms there in Budapest, where the Hungarian is located, but it's supposed to come, on either side of the race. So not during the race, but we are set for a race there that is 10 degrees lower than the temperatures experienced during qualifying. So
this might play into Mercedes' hands. Of
course,
Ferrari,
so as of written in my we're doing a live blog, obviously, for this as well. We'll put the link in the description for you guys to find when you tune in when it comes closer to race time, half an hour before the race, sure. So,
or possibly an hour, depending on how courteous the Raw might be on this occasion.
Well, they've been, the Raw have been fantastic when it comes to the live blogs, and credit to them. So yeah, so in the notes I've written, of course, with the temperature being less, the Silver Arrow should walk away easily with it. But this will be interesting in terms of strategy. There should be a minimum of 2 stops, but could we see some guys even putting on 3 stops?
I was just thinking there's something that you alluded to just in that notion that Mercedes could walk, and it just brought me back slightly. Can you remember 1998? It was the infamous Michael Schumacher victory there, when nobody thought he had a chance in smithereens of pulling it off. He started third, of course, and he pulled out a blinding second stint, essentially. Did something like 20-odd laps, going 1 point something seconds quicker, and he put it up on both McLarens, as it was, the then Silver Arrows, as they were, with the factory Mercedes backing, and really made it quite a special victory, which even now is looked back on as one of the finest endured. So there's the potential there for that to crop up. That'd be something if, say, it was Vettel or even Kimi to pull off a bit of a master stroke. But 3 stops, it's got the potential, but 2 will be the favoured, you would think. It'd be in vogue.
Yeah, with the soft and medium tyres, obviously, the degradation was there when the temperatures were higher. But if they're going to be 10 degrees lower for the race, then it's going to be difficult to see if anyone can match the Mercedes. But as we said, if Rosberg's having his problems, there could be a chance for someone to take that P2 if he suffers through the problems during the race. But also P3, it isn't guaranteed that Vettel will finish where he starts. We could see Ricciardo get the better of his old teammate, bit of psychological warfare going on between them. And it'll be interesting to see, the battle for the podium is still very much open. But in terms of the rest of the race, because Hungary is a low-speed circuit, very difficult to overtake on, can we expect to see some attrition there?
I also want to tie us into this notion that it is indeed the final race prior to the break. I do wonder whether there will be some conservatism on the front of the lower established teams, whether they'll be content with the lower reaches of the points, say if there was perhaps even a podium in the offing. Obviously Red Bull, they're in a position where they can go for it, but these other lesser lights might be more inclined to be content with picking up a solid bag of points than going home knowing that they've got the cars in peak order for that break and they can come back full guns blazing. I don't know if this will have a say, but of course you want to go out and put your best foot forward, as we did allude to on Wednesday, the last race before the break, and make this impression. Obviously last year we saw the theatrics with the inclement weather, but it's up in the air really. For those teams who want to, they'll obviously be all guns blazing. The rest of them, it's undecided from my end, but anything's possible.
Yeah, so we've got both the Force Indias starting out of the top 10. We've got both the Lotus cars starting outside the top 10. So certainly they'll be gunning for points because, their battle in the Constructors' Championship revolves around it. So can we see some aggression from them? Lotus, they will be disappointed still from their outing in Silverstone, where both cars didn't even finish the first lap. They took each other out at turn 3, it was. So that's my only concern at the moment, is on a circuit like this, which is similar to Monaco in the fact that it's low speed, that we will see some aggression, and safety cars will come in. As we said, 2-stop minimum strategy, but we could see even 3 stops come into play if there's some safety cars that get involved. So
absolutely, it's very flexible. It could be one of those off the cuff moments, as we see an earlier trigger for that. Some kind of incident in the opening laps could really cause an about face. It's one of those unique circuits where you really cannot be certain either direction what the strategy might be, and that's the beauty of it. Last year, who would have thought Danny Ricciardo would have come away with it, yet he executed it so masterfully, but you would have thought at the end of it that it was never in doubt, the result.
Exactly, and as we alluded to earlier as well, every time Lewis Hamilton has won here, 2007, 2008, 2012.
I've got to admit there, that was Felipe Massa. He had his little late bloom. That was Heikki Kovalainen's sole victory, as it was. Yes. 09, though, was the one.
Sorry, 09. So 07, 09, 12, and 2013. Those are the 4 occasions that Hamilton has won there. And every time, Kimi Raikkonen's finished second. So
something in it.
Something in it. If you're a Kimi fan out there who wants to see him do well this weekend, perhaps that is a good omen for him. But
and of course, he does need these results.
He needs these results.
Speculation whether he's going to be retained or again cast aside by the Maranello squad.
But you have to say, he has had some problems this weekend that haven't been of his own volition. He had the front wing failure during practice 1, and then in practice 3, just before qualifying, he had a dramatic, as his engineer Dave Greenwood said on the radio, a dramatic water leak, which saw him pretty much sidelined during practice 3, and he wasn't able to do any qualifying runs. So qualifying P5, I guess, was damage limitation in terms of getting that car back out there. But it remains to be seen what he does in the race. He's got Ricciardo and Vettel ahead of him at the moment, so what can he do? And he's also got some quick cars behind him in the Williams duo.
For what it's worth, I think he will squeak onto that podium. It's nigh time to see the Iceman back up there, and he's got it in him to pull it off. I reckon he's got the desire there. As long as you give him a half competitive car and a circuit he's obviously thrived at in the past, I think it'll bring out his true colours.
Exactly, and a lot of Finnish support for him as well this weekend. A lot of
What
Finns.
we were saying earlier as well, I was actually asking you off air, it's a quasi-demi home race since there is no such Finnish Grand Prix. It's pretty close to the Finnish border. What was his remarks?
He said when he was quizzed about this during the week by the press, he said something like, because it's the cheapest event for the Finns to go to, that's why they come in their masses. But it's good to see a lot of support for him there, and as you said earlier, he is driving for his seat at Ferrari at the moment with the speculation that someone like Valtteri Bottas or Nico Hülkenberg,
Daniel Ricciardo.
I was just about to say that. Don't worry.
Must be said, our Aussie man. He must be always in contention.
Don't get your Ricciardo cap on so quickly. But yeah, those three are pretty much in contention for that seat. But Raikkonen desperate to hang on to that. So I guess it's very hard to look past Hamilton to win this race.
It's a yes, tentatively, yet definitively, but we cannot either of us commit to it. It's one of those strange, as I say, it's unique Hungary. It's one of those ones you go into thinking, yep, he's looking solid for it. Then you get to the start
last year we ruled it out because he was starting from the back of the grid, but then he ended up finishing on
the
podium.
And he had a spin or whatnot on the first lap.
Exactly.
I thought he would have even made points. And
yeah,
there he was.
And then he was on the podium ahead of Rosberg. So considering he's starting from the pole, and it's difficult to overtake around here, it's difficult to say that Hamilton will, But then again, we had the blunder in Monaco, so just putting out all the variables. But
covering all bases.
Covering all bases, if it ends up happening, you heard it here first, so yeah.
Yeah, look out, JB Talk F1, we know. If it happens, then we're the ones to go to every time. Just saying.
Put the commentator's curse on Hamilton. We'll have a pack of angry. We'll have a pack of angry Brits on us. We won't be allowed in their country ever again.
Sight to behold.
Our plans for Silverstone next year are already been dashed.
Might have to come in dressed up as an imposter. Perhaps we could dress up as Nige.
Yeah, we'll be Nigel Mansell doppelgangers. But anyway, I'll put the link. We'll put the link in the description to the live blog. It'll be live half an hour before the start of the race. So check your local guides or whatever. It'll be 9:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. But wherever you are, just check your local guides. Blah blah blah. And tune in for the blog definitely. And
just while we're at it, on this note, before we press on. Tomorrow, there's a possibility we might try and get quite an expedited review of this Hungarian Grand Prix up within the 12-hour window post-race. We'll see how we go in terms of just the fallout from the event. Who knows how spectacular it might be. But we do hope to have for you this review, essentially, of this final event prior to the break. And then we are looking to press on by midweek, the Wednesday edition, with our mid-season review and a few more specials, which we do have in the pipeline across this month-long hiatus, which is sadly looming. Yeah,
we've got a couple of specials planned, so across the break, but obviously we'll be looking at trying to get the normal Wednesday edition up on Monday morning, Monday afternoon or whatever. But it just depends on how things pan out. Yes, or do we say potential inebriation? But
who said that? No one ever.
Yeah, no one ever. Nige, stop it.
Nige. I need my body burger and my ale right now.
Nigel Mansell, you're a bad influence.
Right.
1992 world champion.
On with it.
And I think we've gone on a bit too far. But yeah.
Moving on anyway. Let's just. Of course, we could say it's a bit of an end of term feel. You've got to say it is the last race, as we allude to prior to this break. So it is alluded in the actual paddock that they have that kind of on vacation vibe. But we've got to remember as well the somber events but a week ago, the passing of Jules Bianchi. And this is, of course, the first event since that sad realization. So it's with heavy hearts that the drivers and the personnel have trek to Budapest, but it does seem on the upside that they have honoured his memory by getting on with the job and really honouring his memory.
And each car, and obviously on the drivers' helmets as well this weekend, they're sporting some kind of tribute, which is nice. And before the race as well, they will, on the grid, have a minute's silence to honour their fallen comrade. And I'll be sure to point it out. I'll be the author of the blog this evening. So
there'll be special comments from me. I'll be sure to let everyone know when there's a bit of a alternate feed coming into the equation.
The good thing about today is this is the first time we're going to watch a race together.
Well, we do hope it's the first of many, pending future developments in terms of just logistics-wise for residential purposes and that. We do hope it's going to be more of a full-time basis. But for now, this will be the first time where we're collaborating in the same room watching the race, and hopefully this will be to the benefit of the viewers, get a bit of a dynamic report going.
Yeah, and I guess all we can say then is both of us believe Hamilton is the man to beat. It'll be difficult to beat him.
As I say, yes, I'm backing him, but nothing can be ruled out. If we have some shenanigans on that on the opening few laps, it should be said, it's all open to interpretation. So either way.
Very much so. So thank you for tuning into our rather extended pre-race podcast. And we hope to see you again potentially Monday or as usual Wednesday. So be sure to tune into the live blog as well. And thank you for joining us today.